The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Your chance to have your say. We're on the open line till 1 today. Call 66 13 68. Text or WhatsApp 166 177. Email studio@manxradio.com. Well, in response to that freedom of information, you heard this in the news, Manx Radio's revealed 5 times more children have enrolled for home education this year compared to 2018. 5 times as many, and the number's been steadily increasing since COVID. What's the reasons for all this? In 2018 into 2019, the academic year was 47, the following year 57, the following year 82, 21-22 was 20, 22-23 130, 23-24 173, 24-25 236, and this year 25 into 26 244. It's not going down, and I just wonder what you, if you got any thoughts where that's concerned. I'd be interested to hear. Just regarding, I heard you talking about the stress that and responsibility of the air traffic controllers. Might I offer my opinion? The difference between, this is Wolfie, you just said, the difference between our airport and others, say where there are aircraft landings every 5 minutes. Now, we've rarely had aircraft in circuit, and even at busy times, we won't have an aircraft every 10 minutes. This is an entirely different job to controllers, handling movements converging as happens, say, over Europe and other territories where altitude is the separation. That, of course, is critical. Our situation, whilst important, doesn't really compare. So we rarely have aircraft in circuit, even at busy times. Now, if you're in the aviation trade, you'll know all about that. And if you've got any thoughts on the matter, this is just the fact that we never used to have that many problems with the airport. And now it just seems that, well, there's always an excuse. There's always a problem with the airport, whether it's not enough air traffic controllers or having to adhere to the fatigue brake schedule, which of course you do have to adhere to, but if you don't have enough air traffic controllers in the meantime, then you can't deal with any exigencies that may pop up. Not every airline runs strictly to time all the time. Lots of them, particularly people like EasyJet, when, let's say, the late EasyJet flight will come in, having done about half a dozen legs of they could have been to Barcelona, could have been here, there and everywhere. But the trouble is that we seem to pick up the rag end of this. And there's always some sort of problem, and there's always an excuse. There's always a reason for it, and possibly a very good reason for it. It's just that it never used to happen. So any thoughts on this? And particularly if you're in the aviation trade and you can solve the problem for us, then that will be fantastic. Is the large number of children being schooled down to poor teaching standards in primary education? Says, we don't know, do we? What's your opinion? That's a message in from Fran. What's your opinion, Fran? I mean, you're asking the question, but we'd love to know what your opinion is to this. And, of course, if you've got anything to back it up. Why anybody will want to homeschool is beyond me, says JK. Is it snobbery? There's all the world of good going to school, mixing with other people, different teachers, teach differently, you learn better. Well, there is the social aspect of going to school. Homeschooling won't really give you that as much. Regarding home education for children, whilst I believe it can work for some children, says Ian, I do feel going to school is important for children in terms of life skills and interacting with others, be that other children, other adults, such as the teachers at school. All right, any thoughts on this? Text, email, call, WhatsApp. Here's Robert with us now. Hi, Robert. Sorry, hi, it's Paul. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Andy. Can you hear me this time?
Loud and clear.
Oh, brilliant. Fast am I, Andy?
Fast am I. What's on your mind?
The same. I'd just like to reiterate the same point I was making last time. Have you been enjoying the snow, Andy?
Yeah, what was the point for the new readers? Start here. They may not have heard you last time.
I wanted to explain the relationship between authority and responsibility.
Go ahead.
So, as I said, with great authority comes great responsibility, Andy. And that's the message I'm giving out to the Manx people, that they need to understand the responsibility to make the right choices this year. It lies solely with them, because it's a great year coming up for the election.
All right, okay, Paul, we appreciate it. Thanks for calling today. With great responsibility comes supply and demand is what's impacting rental and sales prices. Landlord's bill saw landlords sell up. Increasing population is affecting prices as more people come over to the Isle of Man. Increasing minimum wage doesn't give people more disposable income. The government decisions have caused this mess. It's time for a change of tack, says Roger. We're talking also about the cost of living and what have you, and where we stand at the moment. It's fair to say the cost of living never really goes down. It will be a very, very surprising day when the cost of living did overall go down. So it's always going to go up. It's, as you can point out, whether or not wages, whether or not your salary, your recompense actually matches your lifestyle demands. So this has always been the way. Quite how you get through it, of course, it may be a generational thing. We're looking at this Freedom of Information request, about 5 times more children enrolling for home education compared to 2018. Why is this? Do you have a child at school? As somebody who used to go to school, now being homeschooled, what's behind this? Amy Griffiths from Manx Radio News has been delving into the subject.
As of September last year, there were around 11,000 students enrolled at all the public schools on the island. Leah Brooks is a mum in Douglas and has chosen to educate all 3 of her children at home.
Homeschooling is when you literally bring the school home. So you do everything that you would do in a classroom. So you do lessons at a certain time, you do a playtime, you do a lunchtime, and you follow a curriculum. And then there's what we call home education, which is where it's a little bit less defined. We kind of keep it a little bit more casual. We like to talk about home education as kind of like a long spectrum. So you have people who homeschool, and then you have all the way at the other end, which is considered what we call unschooling, which is no curriculum. It's just very child-led, and it's just focusing on what the child wants and needs, and you follow their lead. So some days we are very close to unschooling, and some days we're a little bit further towards homeschooling, but it's all just following what the kids want to do. It can be really hard. I think to begin with, when I first started, I found it quite lonely. As time has gone on, it's become so much more easier. Once you find your community, you find more people that are also doing it, and from there, it's really fun. The other thing that actually I find really hard is that I still try to measure myself against the traditional education system. So it can be really hard to work out, are we doing this right? Because for a lot of people, home education isn't necessarily their choice. Their child is struggling in school.
In the 2018-19 school year, just 47 children were registered to be home educated on the Isle of Man. But as of September 2025, that was 5 times higher at 244. The Education Amendment Bill of 2025 is currently working its way through Tynwald. The Education Minister, Daphne Kane, has been explaining more to Phil Gaughan.
We are also looking at, for instance, enhancing safeguarding, in particular how we put a focus on children who are not in our schools. We're putting that to an annual registration so that in order that we can have awareness of that. And there's another measure following recent cases in the UK that says if there is a particular safeguarding concern about a pupil, that we have the ability then to prevent a child from being removed from school to be homeschooled.
What's this all about, do you think? Have you got any points where this is concerned? Of course, it's entirely legitimate to do this, but this is a trend that just doesn't seem to be going away. 47 in 2018-19, 244 this year. And if you're a teacher, perhaps, or perhaps an ex-teacher, don't want to put any teachers on the spot, but if you're an ex-teacher, what's your view of this? I mean, ultimately, if the trend continued, of course, it would put the government out of business. But and I'm being flippant when I say that, but I mean, this is a trend that just doesn't seem to be going away. Any thoughts? Text, email, call, WhatsApp. And Adam's with us now. Hi, Adam. Happy New Year.
Hi, Andy. Happy New Year. I hope you had a good Christmas and a New Year. I'm just ringing up today. I was up in the Ayres yesterday. I went up for a walk in the Ayres Nature Reserve, and it was really beautiful. It was, even though it was pouring with rain, drizzling down. The mosses amongst the grasses and the sand dunes and the mosslands. It was really gorgeous and atmospheric. But while I was up there, I noticed that at Andreas there is a development taking place. There's quite a lot of development taking place. And also at Derby, there's been a development built, small sort of homes, probably first-time buyers' homes. And they're just sort of in the middle of a field. They're just they're sort of, you know, they're out on a limb. They're not on the edge of the existing development, which is rather strange, because it spoils the countryside when they do that, when they put them out on a limb. And of course, what they're trying to do is open up more agricultural land for development adjacent to it, between the existing development and the new development. But I mean, it's not sustainable, Andy, to have these developments up there in Andreas and Derby, because it's so far away from everything else. You know, all the jobs are in Douglas, and so why are they developing on prime agricultural land? It's extremely fertile up there in the Ayres, and you know, what are they doing developing on prime agricultural land?
Well, I mean, as far as I think I'm right in saying, but the one in Andreas is a brownfield site. It used to be nurseries up there. It was covered in broken glass. That was a brownfield site.
Well, there seems to be a number of developments up there, Andy, and I just think it's awful the way that planning allow these things to happen, because they're supposed to be building a 15-minute city in Douglas.
Well, yes,
and you know, for first-time buyers, they don't want to. It's not sustainable for them economically to afford to drive into Douglas all the way from Derby or Andreas. You know, it's not the right. We don't want to put first-time buyers miles out in the countryside. They need to be in the centre of town or close to town in order to work and to live. And you know, it's just the wrong approach, I think, to be putting houses that far out.
Well,
and
I mean,
it's a shame because it's destroying.
The thing is, Adam, I mean, the public will decide. If somebody decides to build an estate, and as you say, it's too far away, then nobody will buy there.
No, but I think they do, Andy, because people are forced to buy there because they can't afford homes in Douglas. First-time buyers can't afford homes in Douglas or in Peel. You know, Peel's become very trendy, and people, first-time buyers, are forced out miles out to Andreas and Derby, where these developments are taking place, and they're cheaper properties to buy. Because they're so far away, and I just think it's totally wrong, because it's costing them the amount it will cost them to drive in to Douglas and out, and you know, to their jobs and to their work, to the leisure facilities. There's no facilities out there.
Yeah. So how do you get the cost of properties down in Douglas? Then what do you do? Because obviously one of the big issues at the moment is private rentals. There's a crisis with people, you know, paying a fortune in private rental every month and can't simply get onto the ladder because they can't save enough.
No, well, they need to develop Douglas. They need social housing and also first-time buyers housing. And in the centre of town, we perhaps need to move towards a more continental model where people are living in flats and apartments as opposed to living in small houses with a garden. Because, I mean, many first-time buyers are not interested in having a garden. You know, they haven't got time to look after a garden. They've got a family. You know, a balcony would do. But, I mean, to be fair, Andy, some of them might want a garden, but many, you know, people can have the option. They could build apartments and flats in Douglas for first-time buyers, as they do on the continent. I mean, in the continent, most people live in flats and apartments. You know, it's only sort of the middle, the middle classes and above who live in houses.
Well, Adam,
the
government is sitting on hundreds of acres of development land at the moment. Doesn't seem to be indicating what's going to happen to it. Obviously, the Manx Development Corporation developed the old nurses' home on Westmoreland Road, but nothing else has been done, and certainly nothing no first-time buyer development, as you say, no big block of flats somewhere purely for first-time buyers has been earmarked. And yet, surely if somebody's got a big view for this, a big idea, the government's got the land to do it on.
Yeah, well, why don't they do that then? Because they let Hertford Homes and this Kell Properties, which is owned by the same guy who owns Keltruck and in England, they let them just build anywhere they like, and if they've got all this land, I don't understand what they're doing. I think that it must be corruption, or hang on, or it must be.
No, let's before you say anything like that. The fact is, every planning application is subject to the planning committee, so everything has to go through there. So before we start bandying words like that around, it has to go to a planning committee.
Well, it might have to go to a planning committee, but the planning committee is not doing a very good job, are they? Because they're allowing prime agricultural land to be built on in areas where there's not been previous developments, and at the centre of town. And you're saying the government's got all these brownfield sites that it needs to be building on. They're not getting built on. They're not doing it. And why are they not doing it? There's nobody can see any reasons. So there must be a reason. There must be a reason, and it may not be a valid or legitimate reason, but there will be one.
Well, the government are the people that you need to speak to, and there's an election coming up in September, so it may be something that you want to put to any potential candidate about what's going to happen. Well, I mean, let's put it this way: how would you feel, Adam, if the government said, we're going to use one big tranche of our land that's been sitting there for years and years and years, completely unused, and we're going to put, 300 first-time buyer flats on it. And that site, Adam, is Summerland. How would you feel about that?
Well, I don't think Summerland's an appropriate site for 300 flats, Andy, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you said that we need flats, and that's an enormous site that's been sitting doing nothing.
Yeah, well, I think more the town centre sites, the old Lord Street accommodation and the bus station and the Middlemarch site, and those sites need building on, as opposed to, I mean, it's the same with businesses. They move out to the Alaman Business Park, out to Cool, instead of developing in town, and they need to incentivise building in town with taxation or something to encourage building to take place in Douglas City Centre. So. I mean, it's not. I mean, the government. I don't understand what the government does with all the land. To be honest, I mean, I don't know how the Manx countryside's divided up. I think these days, 80% or so is. So they tell us that the agricultural shows is supposed to be agricultural land in the Isle of Man, but there's more and more land being brought up for estates and goodness knows what. And the traditional Manx farmers have seen fewer and fewer, and then the government owns huge amounts of land. I mean, they had all that land south of Douglas Head, in Santon, in Braddon and Santon, where they were going to build the National Forest. I mean, whatever happened to that? I mean, they could develop down there because it's bleak and sparse agricultural land, and it's they could be developing there. They would have beautiful views, and it's they could build an extension from Marine Drive, restore Marine Drive to put Soderick in there and build along there. But I mean, that would be better because it would be much closer to Douglas than out in the Airs and destroying the Airs.
Okay, all right. Okay, Adam, just one thing as well. Please don't come on Mannin Line bandying the word corruption around. Please don't say things like that unless you've got absolute evidence and something you'd like to take to law, but please don't use Mannin Line for things like that, okay?
Oh, right, okay. All right then, Andy.
Okay, thanks for calling today. Here's Howard with us. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Just listening to your news a couple of times here this morning about the homeschooling, how the numbers are increasing.
Yeah.
Well, what they were quoting there were blanket numbers. There was no information in it except the numbers, which mean absolutely nothing to the man in the street. A breakdown of those numbers in some form with the this is a word I find extremely difficult. Ethnicity, is it? Of the people who are taking their children out of school. It may provide an answer or a clue as to why, because we have now a large number of people moving onto the island, and English may not be their first language as parents, which the children will be following through. Plus, they might not be of a Christian faith, so they would want to school their children at home in their own faith. Now, clues to that would be good, not a blanket figure coming out from government, which means absolutely nothing. It's just like saying 24 buses went past me today, but you don't know where any one of them is going. And, a breakdown on those figures would be much more presentable and, in a form, easier to understand. Because I've nothing against, people coming into the island, not in large numbers, that would be foolish. But I've worked with people of different ethnicities, and in fact, one of my best friends, good friends, I've known him for over 60 years, and he's run his own business here on the island. And, so there's no animosity on that side, but there are a large number of different family groups coming to the island now, and maybe somewhere within that group, those numbers have increased the numbers that the government are quoting. So, I don't know.
And what conclusion do you draw from that, Howard?
A conclusion in so much that the people who are coming to the island might be more insular. And, that we don't know who's coming onto the island. We don't know who's being employed here legally or illegally, as has just been found out. There's a large percentage of people within our government itself, in the hospitals, the teachers, etc. They are... they come over onto the island, stayed, and in doing a good job. But it doesn't mean to say that they want their children to go to a Christian school. They could have very strong thoughts on their own religion and want to bring their children up in a similar vein. So maybe this is what's leading to the larger increase of numbers of people who are now being taught.
Do you think the government, we should ask the government for details of this, Howard?
Yes. Well, the government should have those details, and another application for freedom of information, and they should be divulged. Not names, just numbers of ethnicity. And that way you can have an idea what is happening, instead of holding these names, the numbers, etc., close to your chest, and just giving, it's the old story, just let them know what they need to know. Don't tell them any proper information. There's a level where it goes down to and then stops, and that's what the government are doing at the moment. They're giving so much information out, but not information that is useful. They're keeping their powder dry.
Okay.
So, give us a quote on the numbers. Doesn't have to be names, just a quote on the numbers of the number of people who are not English speaking and of religions, etc., that need or want their children to be brought up in their religious sector.
Okay. All right, Howard, thanks for calling today.
Take care. Bye now.
Okay, homeschooling is most likely due to bullying, says WhatsApper 566. I had to remove my daughter. They take the victims of bullies as it's easier than dealing with the bullies. Is that so? Spread industry jobs all over the Isle of Man. Not everybody works or wants to live in Douglas, says 437. And also, have you seen that there are different things happening at RGS regarding the parents' evening. I did see that, apparently. They go on about attendances, yet your child has to miss a day's school and only allowed to attend a 15-minute appointment with their form tutor. Not surprised, homeschooling is on the increase if they start doing things like this. Yes, the parents' evening at Ramsey Grammar School is changing somewhat, apparently. It's now going to be a day where the parent, the guardian, has to go in with the child, and the child then tells them how they think they're doing as well. All very modern, 15 minutes. So the parents' evening as such won't be an evening. Back to the lines is Juan with us now. Hello, Juan.
How are you today, Andy?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, good.
Good. You were talking yesterday about collecting Christmas cards, old Christmas cards of people. So I took that up this year. I've asked all my friends for Christmas cards, and I got my other friend to buy me a bottle of Tipex. So we're sorted for next year's Christmas cards. So that'll keep the carbon footprint down, won't it?
Well, we'll call it recycling.
Recycling, yeah, absolutely. And just noticing as well, petrol where I am at the moment here is 55p a litre converted. It's $2.45 a gallon, American gallon, so it's about 55 a litre. And the car insurance has actually gone down by about 50% in the last year. So that's interesting figures for other parts of the world, isn't it?
It's gone down.
Gone down, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of adverts now, offering car insurance. I mean, car insurance here is quite expensive, actually, but it's actually gone down about 50%. My car insurance is down 50%, which is a lot. It's on par with the UK now, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Just a couple of points that's come up there. Yesterday, I see the press release there from Dr. DOI with reference to clown images on her Facebook profile, and she's not happy about the responses that she's getting on her own personal profile. Which is, I suppose, is quite fair in one respect, because if it's your own personal site, then yeah, you're entitled to your opinion on that. But if you put your head above water and you stand up, and if you're doing things right and everyone's happy, you're not going to get that feedback. So there's that to look into it. But the old song comes into mind there with the clown images, Andy. It's clowns to the left of me and jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with Dr. DOI. Where are we? With the home education. That one's just popped up today as well. And Howard's got a fair point there about, other ethnicities coming over to the island. And the point I would make about that, if that's true, is integration. And that's the point a lot of people have been making about, lots of other people coming from different countries and integration into our society. So that's a good point to actually follow down the line. Are these people actually going to integrate? Because that was our point about, moving to somewhere and embracing someone's culture of their country.
Well, we don't know what the reason is. I mean, it's a startling increase. It is 5 times more children are enrolling for home education than in 2018. So we don't know. We don't know the reason. It could be anything, to be quite honest.
And absolutely, and that's what Howard said. I quite agree with that. But I do know that people were concerned about like you mentioned there, the modern education, especially the sex education. And since COVID, I mean, them figures have risen since the COVID intake as well. So there's all that to take into consideration, the bullying. But the sex education is another one. People are not happy with the way and the things that their children are getting taught in school, and the way it's getting manipulated and taught in school. So that's another thing. So maybe you can get, maybe Code Red Daphne will come on and update you on a little bit more information on that.
Well, it will be interesting to find out. What's the weather like in Florida, by the way?
The weather is pretty good, actually, Andy. It's nice 70, 75 degrees. And that is actually a good point coming on to, because the other day there was a congressional meeting of and a lot of subpoenas of people talking under oath about geo-weather manipulation. which was quite interesting. It was quite an interesting conversation. And it was brought out as well under subpoena that £50 million of English taxpayers' money has been spent on a scheme to dim the sun. So if anyone's complaining over in England not getting enough sun, well, there you go. Have a look at the conspiracy theory, because it's actually true. Money is getting spent there on sun dimming. And there was, I think I mentioned here, a ban on chemtrails and from anyone leaving Florida airports. And for 3 or 4 weeks here, I believe, that the skies were blue and they were clear. Same amount of planes going over. But they've overridden that with federal law because federal airspace overrides state control. So we've got them back, but not as bad as what it was before. But everyone's on their own. If they don't want to believe it, they don't want to believe it. But it makes you wonder why the skies were clear for a few weeks when you had the same amount of planes, and then all of a sudden they found a way around it. But there you go. The weather's okay, Andy. We're doing good. I hope your weather's okay with you over there.
All right. Cheers, Stuart. Good to hear from you. All right, 25-1. Thank you to Lee, who just said, well, one of the reasons that sometimes there are contrails, condensation trails, and sometimes there aren't, it's the state of the air above it. If it's dry or if it's moist, that's the reason sometimes you get contrails and sometimes you don't.
Save 17% on the Loganair Tartan sale with promo code WINTER17. Book now at loganair.co.uk. T/Cs and exclusions apply, subject to availability.
Discover your dream home in Andreas with Cal Developments Limited. Their quality new build 2, 3 and 4 bedroom properties offer countryside living with amazing views just 5 minutes from Ramsey. These spacious homes are built for modern energy efficient living with ground floor underfloor heating and air source heat pumps, plus contemporary kitchens, beautiful bathrooms, landscaped exteriors and more. Reserve yours now. Cal Developments Limited, Oatlands Road, Andreas. Island living redefined.
It's the glow up your home deserves. The Lifestyle Furniture winter sale is now on. Huge savings on our most sumptuous sofas. Dreamy discounts on beds and mattresses, including premium brands like Harrison Spinks. And 20% off all accessories. Mirrors, lighting, rugs, art. The details that dazzle. All with free home delivery island-wide and finance options subject to status. The winter sale at Lifestyle Furniture. Now on at Snugborough Trading Estate, Union Mills.
The Isle of Man Creamery, famous for the freshest Manx milk, dairy products, Noah Bakehouse treats and more, has now made ordering deliveries even easier. Simply download the Isle of Man Creamery Doorstep Direct app and you're ready to order. Reschedule deliveries, see your order history and request invoices. Treat your taste buds in a few taps. Get info and add to your order now at isleofmancreamery.com/delivery or visit your app store to download the app now.
Tune in and chill out with Chris Pearson on Manx Radio.
As the weekend fades and the night draws in, slow it down with the Chill Out Show.
City feels clean this time of night.
The Sunday Chill Out. Chris Pearson, Manx Radio.
The Manx Radio Chill Out Show, Sunday evenings from 7.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
22 minutes now before 1. What's the ratio of those homeschooled to those in school? There may be 5 times the number being homeschooled. Is that consistent with the total number of children of school age? 11,000 children in school, I think we mentioned earlier on, and 244 being homeschooled. So 11,000 against 244. And we've got Robert now. Hello, Robert.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
I got the milk in yesterday, so there'll be plenty of omelettes for the next couple of days.
Smashing.
Look, I was thinking about back in 2022, they had BBC Parliament on DAB around Douglas. Do you remember that?
On DAB?
They did, yeah. I remember walking out of Colburn's and walking up the hill to where the register was, and they had DAB BBC Parliament.
Right, yeah, go on.
On DAB, on local Parliament. Well, I pay my TV licence by Santander cheque, and I think we should have it back. I think we pay enough.
Well, you're perfectly at liberty to take it up with the BBC.
Well, I'll try if they come over, but they don't have much representation unless it's every 4 years, don't they?
Well, no, I mean, there's a BBC department sitting underneath me here. We got an office full of BBC Isle of Man, they're called. So if you want to drop a note to the BBC Isle of Man, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to point you to the in the right direction.
All right, well, I'll try my yogurt flapjack and we'll see how we do with that.
Okay. Regarding the flats and building in central Douglas, parking's always going to be an issue. But certainly when we get towards the election, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what the new candidates will be saying about housing and how to solve the housing problem that there is. For problem, there is one, and certainly the issue being the cost of private rents. And the logjam that there is of people trying to get on the housing ladder, but just simply can't get onto the housing ladder. Now, many people will always say, look, it's always been difficult. It's never been easy getting onto the housing ladder. You've just got to want to do it, and you've got to be able to save and save and save. Or access money, perhaps from family. But quite what you think the government should be doing where this is concerned, and I wasn't joking when I said Summerland is an enormous site. And if the government wanted to do something with that, let's just say build 300 first-time flats for people as an entry point to get in. Iconic location, and it would solve a problem. And it is a huge, and there's not many people to object to the planning as well. But the government's got lots and lots of land. I'm 100% behind wind farms. Eristane and other locations around the Isle of Man, and the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. So I don't quite know what the point you're getting to, but John, we're more than happy to mention that today. Right, the cost of living is getting very high, so why is the Manx pension supplement being reduced by 5% per year until it is no more, says David S. Thanks also to Les, who just said, what's the latest on the horse trams? And what's going to happen? Are the horse trams ever going to be put back from Castlemona Avenue through to the sea terminal, which is where they was? Well, 150 years ago, a private individual, Thomas Lightfoot, had the horse tram tracks built along Douglas Promenade. It was designed to be a boost to the then burgeoning tourism trade, the visitors. But in recent years, the length of that track, or for some, the very existence of the horse trams, has come into question. What do you think? Here's John Moss.
They have delighted visitors to this island, initially because they were the way to travel along the promenade, and then because there was something from the past which had just stuck around and was fun to ride on. But as the Douglas horse trams enter the 150th year of the existence of this Victorian people carrier, it's a truncated version from Thomas Lightfoot's original brilliant concept of a way to take holiday makers, perhaps with their bags after alighting from the ferry, along to their hotels, and then in the evening perhaps to offer a leisurely jog from one end of the prom to the other. Once there were many trams trotting along back and forth. Now there are only a few, operating on a track cut in half from the original concept. From the War Memorial south to the sea terminal, there is a broad grassy verge, a weedy grassy verge, which was earmarked for the tram tracks to continue their journey to the sea terminal. But there would seem to be a broad margin running from the earmarked to the actually happening. There are those who see the full length of track as an invaluable, quirky and special part of the Manx tourism effort, but others who regard the cost of installing the missing link as a waste of cash. Cash which the government could find better use for. The horse trams have operated continuously, except for 2 interruptions. World War II, when posts and barbed wire for the internment boarding houses were along the promenade. And finally, when, after decades, the government decided to grasp the nettle and repair the weary promenade. The infrastructure are examining the costs for extending the track to the sea terminal. But we're less than a year from a general election. And even if the Treasury says, OK, giddy up, could a new administration say, whoa? Are Annabelle, David and Riley looking at a certain or an uncertain future? After 150 years of trips on the trot and a celebration of that this year, is there a danger of wham, bam, thank you, tram?
It's a thought, isn't it? 150 years. And the election is on the way. Horse trams, Castle Mona Avenue to Sea Terminal. Yes or no?
SMS Trading. New and second-hand furniture from flat pack to fully built. See our range at 3 St Paul Square, Ramsey. All-island delivery and man in a van service available. Call SMS Trading on 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
Imagine a future where the Isle of Man is powered by the very wind that shapes our shores. The Moor Vannin Offshore Wind Farm will bring that vision home to our island. Be part of the journey and explore the project at orsted.im.
Drive smarter, drive more reliable, drive a great deal at Mannin Motors. With a superb range of cars for every budget, always available. And if we don't have it, we'll source it. Plus, servicing, valeting and prestige detailing too. Mannin Motors, Richmond Hill, Douglas. Find us on Facebook or call 420 420. That's 420 420. Drive a better bargain at Mannin Motors.
Many people are struggling. You can help by volunteering or making a donation to Isle of Man Food Bank, whether it be food or essential items or financial support. Please call 646 999, brought to you by Descon Office Interiors.
The Riley sale is now on. Now with up to 50% off our fantastic Christmas ranges. From trees and decorations to gifts and toys. Stock up now at Riley's Garden Centre on Cool Road. And join the magic on Facebook and Instagram.
Cannell's Agricultural Supplies have been serving the good folk of the North for over 30 years. Supplying homegrown wheats, whole and rolled oats, working clothing, fencing, animal feeds, parts, tools and emergency supplies. Call Julia on 880206 or find Cannell's on Facebook.
Are you a small charity here on the Isle of Man? Are you looking for volunteers, hoping to raise awareness and chasing those crucial pounds and pennies to support your work? Well, Manx Radio can help. You could be our next 1 to 3 Charity of the Week. With daily on-air coverage, podcast and social media promotion, we can help support you and those you help. Just email the numbers 123@manxradio.com and listen out for the feature each weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. The Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Thank you, Pam. Why should cost of living be an issue now? Should have been an issue for 5 years, including housing for our young people, the extortionate rent. These things shouldn't be an issue just now because we're heading towards a general election. Our politicians have wasted so much time talking about absolute rubbish like 20 miles per hour limits and the bishop's vote, instead of what's really important. I can't wait for the politicians to knock on my door, says Pam. I bet they can't wait to knock on your door, Pam. Any thoughts? Text, email, call and WhatsApp. And here's Julian now. Hello, Julian.
Hi, Andy. How are you doing?
Well, good, thank you.
Good, yeah. Nice and clear today, so no ice anywhere, thank God. Just a couple of things. What Adam was saying at the start of the show, I noticed that there was a couple of smaller wind turbines on a planning application earlier last year. But that planning application was refused by the local planning committee because the local community said that the visual amenity in the landscape would be ruined. But on appeal by the company that wanted to do it, Claire Barber overrode the planning committee and basically rammed it through as approved. As she's DEFRA Minister, but she's also the chair of the Climate Change Transformation Board. So is that a conflict of interest if she's interceding in things like wind turbine applications? Because surely she will also be responsible for the application for Erie Stane, won't she?
Well, I'm sure, I mean, as long as she didn't exceed her authority, and I'm sure if she were to exceed her authority, it would have been pointed out. So we can only assume that she didn't.
It just seems a bit worrying that if everyone basically says they don't want Erie Stane, and it comes down to a veto by the DEFRA minister, who's also on the Climate Transformation Change Board. It seems like it's at a done deal in that case, if that kind of authority is there. The other bit of, people removing their kids from schools, I noticed that there's quite a lot of anecdotal evidence in the UK is also having this. And a lot of the things they're raising are ideological and philosophical views. They don't like what's going on in the school, religious, cultural and moral beliefs, bullying, and as general not thriving in the schools. And also another thing is... I think it applies here as well because they're using the Department of Education's framework for education, mandating climate change, including embedding this into biology, chemistry and physics, talking about man-made climate change, CO2 being a major warming thing, sustainable development and climate modelling in GCSE and at A-level. And maybe there are some people who don't agree with this. They see it more like indoctrination than they do teaching. So I don't know. But somebody else just before you said about they're 100% for these wind farms. I read, interestingly, we talk about these wind farms on the island, and we always talk about that interconnector, don't we? The new one that they want to put in. And I read an interesting article on the UK government's Ofgem energy website. In 2018, an interconnector was proposed to go from Orkney to Caithness in North Scotland. And at that time, it was estimated to cost $260 million. And that's 43 miles long. The one to Bispam, the one we've got at the moment, including the onshore bits, is 65 miles, so it's significantly longer to the island. There's been an update from Ofgem. That $260 million for that Orkney interconnector is now proposed to cost $900 million.
What?
Which is that's a 246% inflation. Which basically means that in 2018, that interconnector would have been about $6 million a mile, and it's now looking at $21 million a mile. And we're longer than that. Now, I'm not saying that it would, obviously the seabeds are a bit different, although they do say that it only goes down to about 90 metres, and I think ours is 50, 60 metres, so it's not a huge difference. But last year, the interconnector for the island was first mentioned at 100 million, then Hansard indicates in October, I think it was, that it was going to be over 200 million. I can't see that this new interconnector, at the rate of increase, is going to be under 300 or maybe 350 million.
Well, it depends who pays for it, doesn't it? I mean, as long as we don't get the bill for it, it doesn't really matter.
Well, yes, but I mean, is Ørsted, who are currently economically challenged at the moment, going to throw potentially 350 million plus at an interconnector? I mean, the price of copper has gone up 42% in the last quarter of last year. So, the cost of all the armouring and the aluminium and everything else are all shooting up. So if this climate change thing, it sounds like it's getting more expensive by the day. I mean, not forgetting that Erie Staines Caervai proposed wind farm, jumped from 23.5 million to over 40 million in a few months?
Well, that one we would be paying for.
Well, the thing is, if let's suppose you take last year's 100 million as the baseline original cost, and it ends up being probably 400 million for an interconnector based on the prices that I'm seeing for the interconnectors that are going in at the moment. That's kind of par for the course, because wasn't the Liverpool ferry terminal about 4 times over budget? The power station in 03 ended up being like 4 times over budget. The promenade, I would say it went well over budget. So is this interconnector going to cost us a pretty penny?
It's going to be an interesting general election build-up, don't you think, when we get to talk to all the candidates, Julian?
I think so. And, don't forget, the UK in January last year almost had a complete blackout because the interconnectors that they're now reliant on from France and Norway clipped out. So So they had to get power from somewhere, so they got it from Belgium, and the usual £100 a unit ended up, they said, well, we're really sorry, but you're going to have to pay £10,000 a unit, which they were forced to do, otherwise they would have had to start shutting down large sections of the UK's grid. So if we shackling ourselves to the UK that seems to be going more and more with renewables and more problems, and I don't think it's going to be just a 2 at the start of the figure. I think it's going to be well north of 300 million for that new interconnector if they decide to have it here, based on the prices that I'm seeing on the per mile cost of interconnectors around the world. It's not getting any cheaper.
It's a brave new world. It just depends whether or not we have the politicians, the political infrastructure, and the bureaucrats who can deal with it for us, Julian.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, perhaps they need to have a committee that looks and sees, well, how is it that Orkney's latest Ofgem UK government quote is 21 million a mile, and we're 65 miles away. I mean, we're 65 miles is the exact length of our current interconnector from Bispham to Port Skillion. Well, 65 times 21 million is quite a lot of money, isn't it? So, well, it's somewhere in between.
We'll see. All right, Julian, good to hear from you. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
Good to hear from you. Text, email, call and WhatsApp, and stop the ballooning population. Stop increasing the numbers through large-scale immigration, says Mark. Well, it's a stated aim of the government to do that, to put the population up to 100,000, to increase the working population. More people work, more people pay tax, more people put into the system. I think it's wonderful seeing all the new cultures and faiths moving over here, says Mike. And a note from Shelley, who just said, let's face it, we Manx people can't really complain about different people coming to the Isle of Man. The Manx have emigrated all over the world for 150 years. The fact that some people may choose to come here, well, that's their choice.
When the Mannin Line's not on air, call Manx Radio to leave your opinion for broadcast on 682 631.
And out of hours, you can email manninline@manxradio.com. So answer phone 682 631, email manninline@manxradio.com. Is the large amount of homeschooling down to poor standards of teaching at primary school level? My neighbour has children at a school whose children are being taught the same lessons they were taught by the same teacher over 20 years ago. Well, they may be very good lessons. I sincerely hope the Manx schools, apart from the faith schools, aren't indoctrinating children into Christianity, says S. Have we heard about the school-age population? That may have changed. This might need to be included when calculating homeschool education numbers. My grandson is home educated after his first year at secondary school. His head was hopeless and not helpful with a problem that he had. Since being taught at home, he's way ahead for his age, doesn't miss out on mixing with others as he does sports 6 evenings a week and is much happier. That's it. Thanks to Chris on the phones today. Back tomorrow.
WINT